choose this day who you serve, the only way for a judge to find out is by him basically by that scripture, which you just read out, if you could say it again.
Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11.
Yeah, and that particular scripture is relevant right in court. Why is that? I've just listened to a recording as well where the brother went in and the judge basically said, look what I did to all these other people. I reduced their fines. I kept this guy out of prison. I did this and I did that. Right? You can do the same. All you need to do is what they're doing. Right? So, in other words, they're tempting you to say, hey, everybody else is doing it. You should be doing that too. And this is the deal that the devil is making with you, right? He's tempting you to kneel, bend the knee, right, and do an act of worship before the Maker, before the Father, because that's the only way they'll find out your fruits. The only way they'll find out who you serve. And unfortunately, in court, the only thing which I think you could also look up as well, because this is another scripture. If you've got a handful of scriptures that you're guided by, this is very, very powerful. And the other scripture is basically that number one scripture, which is, you find that one out, which is basically Pontius asking Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? In other words, are you the king of the owners? Yeah? So soon as that question has got to do with, are you saying I was there, right? Where were you when the when the heavens and the earth and all of that were put together? Where were you? Where the where the body of a man with all the organs were knitted together in perfection? Where were you when all this was taking place? Were you there? So this has got to do with the charges, where and when. Yeah, this is so significant, right? But blinding to most people. That's why that particular scripture, if you can actually find that one out and write that one down and put it up, because there's a handful of scriptures that we need to go by.
That's Luke 23:3, brother.
Good. So you put that one up there as well, right? Because that one has got to do with, you do not speak in court. You do not reason with the judge in court. You do not even acknowledge anything other than two things that you need to acknowledge. And there's basically possession, and the way you acknowledge it is through question, not through statement. If you, and this is, I've just heard, if I was to say to you, I can speak in statements to you, but in court, I don't do that.
Right.
I'll speak in statements to you so you can kind of grasp what I'm talking about. I'll speak in statements. I'll speak in I ams. I'll speak in all that stuff just so that you can meditate. When you go to court, it's the opposite. It's am I. It's always, everything's in reverse. And if you can reverse engineer the mind, then you've got more of a hope than going to hell. In a sense, where the judge will throw you in jail. And it says in the scripture, if you don't deal with thine adversary quickly, you'll be thrown, lest you'll be thrown into, lest means you'll be warned that you'll be thrown into jail. And everyone down here gets thrown into jail when you do an act of worship. And an act of worship, if you start investigating, what the hell is worship? Yeah. What does this mean to be worshipping? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's very, very, very important to start to understand what does this worship means. It's like a payment. It's like a man's, you're regarding something. What do you regard? What do you know about render, giving? Is it yours to give?
Right.
Render. Render is another word for giving, religious reverence and homage, a deity. So it's like a worship is it's like you're meddling in demonic forces. And that's what worship is. If you want to look at the word and investigate the word, it all comes back to being in possession. Okay? And it's the magistrates, and the magistrate is there to see what is it you worship. You worship the idols. You worship the word. You worship basically everything that you think you see outside your eyes, and that's very hard to actually go into the meditation of question, and that's why that question Jesus asked allegedly. I wasn't there, but if it's true, that question, are you saying I was there, or are you saying I'm the king of the owners, is a very big difference between saying are you the king of the owners, and saying I am the king of the owners.
Right.
Right? Because king of the Jews is king of the owners. Can you see the difference between a question and a statement? That's the ultimate thing. Is there a difference between a question and a statement?
So instead of even repeating King of the Jews, he didn't even say that. Like you said, don't even bring up their terminology. He said,
No,
you say that I am.
there
That's
you
kind
go.
of like, what do you mean by that, right?
Hey, you're picking it up, brother. Because he's not saying, are you the king of the Jews? He didn't say, are you saying I'm a Jew? Are you saying
Right.
I'm an owner?
Right.
He didn't bring up the terminology of an owner or a Jew. He just goes, are you saying that I am? And he used that, T-H-A-T, that. And that encompasses all terminology, all words. And as soon as in court you bring up a term that's spoken from another man, and then they speak it to you, and then it comes out of your mouth, it's now contagious. It's now inside you. You are now in possession of that word or term that was uttered out of the mouth of man next to you, and now you're speaking his words. Do you
Brother,
see what I'm...
I do, because that is when I was hit with and like you say, I'm just speaking loosely. That is when the judge issued a contempt. Is when I picked up two of his words. I
There you
picked it
go.
up and I repeated it back to him instead of saying, "What do you mean by that?" You know what I'm
There you
saying?
go. There you go, brother.
And I can as soon as you said it last night, even my lady was sitting beside me listening to it, and she said, "Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. Why would you say a word back to them that they said?" Of course, that's understanding. Of course.
Sounds like you're with a good woman.
I believe so, brother. I believe so. We bounce this stuff off of each other. You know what I mean? But the only reason I did attempt, the agent was on the stand, and he read off all the things that I was naughty for, and I let him speak. And when he got to the end of it, I did try a little bit of it. I asked him, I said, do you agree with that? And, I went that route, and I said, well, is that agreement signed on a piece of paper between you and me in front of the judge? But
you said that.
Yeah, I said that in court. I'm going to try to get the transcript for us too. I've never gotten the transcript,
brother. Beautiful.
I actually was recording it, but when they took me off to jail, my lady didn't know it was recording, and so she just exited out of the app. But it was recorded initially.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and is it still available?
The recording? No. It never saved, because she would have had to hit save. I downloaded an app and paid for it just to be able to record it. And like I said, I recorded the whole thing, but she was unaware that it was recording when she picked it up, because she was because it was complicated, because it's a family court matter this time, brother. So it was she and I at the same time speaking. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah. But don't look. A claim is a claim, right. And whether it's family, whether it's a parking ticket, or whether it's robbing a bank, it's all that you go into the mix, and it's a cement mixer, and it's all the same. Yeah, it's like what once you start seeing that's why when you go to jail, you don't understand. Hang on, I'm in jail because of a parking fine, and I'm next to a murderer, a rapist, and I'm next to all these other so-called convicted whatever. How is that possible? I'm in the same mix. Because it's all the same. You're all criminals. You're a criminal because you took a shoestring. Whether you take $1 million or you take a shoestring, you still took something. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
It sounds ludicrous. It sounds ludicrous, though, isn't it?
It does. It does. I've been following bat, like you said. It takes 500 hours of the old bat, and I've probably got 350. Probably not 500, but I probably got 350 hours of the old bat. So this stuff does make perfect sense to me, brother. I mean, I'm a little incapable of hitting it perfectly, but it
No, no,
makes
no,
sense.
no. Look, you're on the journey, bro. Look, it's not about perfect, you know.
Right.
It's about you doing it. And I'm not. And as far as the bat is concerned, this is what I'm saying about the bat stuff is 20 years ago, at least, he was asking questions and it was helping with the mind to open up the mind.
Right.
Whereas now, I don't know what is going on. There's no questions asked. There's no interrogation or scrutinisation of the mind. And it's a dog's fucking breakfast. I actually, it's a bit surprising how things have gone. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I still love the guy, but it's a starting point, is all I'm saying. It's a stepping stone from one step to the next step. And that's really how you need to look at it. Other than that, if you follow that, the way the bat stuff is going, it also can take you to jail. It can be worse for you. So you need to look at it from that perspective. Oh shit, this is also going to, if I follow this and bringing up these terminology in court, it's gonna fuck me very well. It's gonna fuck me over big time, and that's why you use it as a tool to start unfucking yourself, and then eventually you start to see each time a little bit more. Right. Yeah, you're on the journey, which is can be either quite full of peril, or quite full of joy in some way. Right. But look, it's something to really ponder on. Is listen to possession, because in the court, and I've just listened to one of the videos of the brother. And the judge is just going, oh, these are your fines and you're this and you're that. If you don't hit it in the first proposition, and I mean hammer it every time he speaks possession, you need to hold him up, not hold him up, wait till he finishes and go, what do you mean by your? What do you mean by have? And then the only thing you're speaking, the simplicity of this is not easy. It's very difficult, but it is extremely simple. And the reason why is because we can't hear the possessive terms. Once you start hearing it, you start hammering it as much as they hammer it. You can't just ask one, what do you mean by your, and put it down and say, oh, I've asked it, and then expect the world to fucking, it's all dandy now. Yeah. No, that's just a fuckwit who's got no idea what they're talking about, right? Because not that I've got any idea what I'm talking about, but in relation to asking each time, like a child, that is extremely annoying. That is what you need to do, is ask, what do you mean by your? Don't bring up terminology, don't bring up anything in court with the judge, because the judge is there to set you up in taking a plea, in taking the offer of doing the act of worship. That's what the judge is there to do. And as soon as you go into reason, as soon as you open your mouth, you set yourself up for destruction.
Well, what can I say, brother? You are like, when you say we miss the possessive terms. See, whenever we're talking here on the phone and the last several calls, I can hear every possessive term. But for some reason, when the judge said, put your right hand on, because I did question him about a lot of possessive terms, but like you said, it's no good if you move on and you get off point. So when he said, put your left hand on the Bible and swear, instead of saying your, that went right by me. And I said, is it true that the good book says swear no oath? But that has nothing to do with my hand. You know what I'm saying? I let the possessive slide right by.
Yeah, that's right. And this is the daily meditation on the possessor, the father, because you're meditating on this, and you're starting to hear it. And when you can hear it, and the hardest place is to hear it is in court, because we're in some way we're in the stadium or the auditorium of fear, and the fear it stops us from hearing the possessive terms, because we're still identified with self and myself. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, a lot of sense.
and it's very, very hard. I know, but this is the the more you do court. I mean, I'm not saying go to court every single day. No. This is I hope not to go to court for like years to come. Even though I've been to court many times. I've it's kind of nice now where I just go about whatever I'm doing on a daily basis. And, I don't have to go to this thing called the court for a while, at least, it's good to have a bit of a break for a while. But if I do go, I don't go and talk to the judge. I only ask about possession. And then I only ask when he brings up anything else, I just go straight into, are you saying I was there? And that is pretty much all I stick to. I don't get distracted by the informants. I don't get distracted by the prosecution. I don't get distracted by any other bullshit that's going on around me. I stick to the judge and I go, are you saying I was there? And he's going to do whatever he can to throw you off course. You got to do whatever you can to stay on course.
And he did, brother. His attitude was that of an emotional woman on her monthlies, brother. And
yeah,
it shouldn't have thrown me off. It shouldn't have thrown me off. But I mean, he was literally telling me, "Oh, you know what I mean. Any person with a reasonable mind would know what I mean." All this kind of stuff.
There you go. He's trying to now win you over to say, "Oh, he reasoned." Can you see? He's getting you to reason with him. As soon as you reason, you're reasoning with the beast. You're reasoning with the devil. You're reasoning with the demon, right? As soon as you speak reason, it's knowledge, it's property, it's possession. It ain't yours. And that's what this whole system is about, is to reveal, is this arsehole going to reason with me? They need you to reason with the one before you and the judge. And that's why the only thing you can ask in court, are you saying I was there? Because they can't prove that you were there unless you speak something. And when you speak something, that speaking is called reason. And when you speak reason, you're into the shit. Hey, can I give you a quick call back in another minute? Hang on a second.
Sounds good, brother.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I just thought I had an important call come through. But if I do have to jump off, I'll jump back on with you, okay?
Okay, all right, brother.
But anyway, let's stay on this for another minute, for another 20 minutes or whatever. So it's very important never to engage into any discussion or talking with the judge. This is number one. And it sounds like what you did. It sounds like you did very, very well, even though you think you didn't do well at all. You actually did better than you realise. But you just can't see it at the moment. It's like when I went to court and I did all this stuff, I didn't realise, I thought I did terrible. But then I realised, because I asked the proper questions, everything came back to zero. And I didn't I couldn't figure out initially when I was doing this journey. I thought that was crap. I didn't realise. I felt like, I just thought, I didn't do too well. And then I realised, mate, you did fucking incredible. Because when you're done, because it's blinding. You just can't see. It's so hard to see it when you asking these questions. It's cataclysmic, and you don't ask the agreement question in front of the judge. You do it in front of the prosecution and the informant.
Yeah,
you do it in front of them.
Yeah,
good, and that's what you stick to. You don't deviate from that. You stick to it, and they'll throw you off course. But you've got to stay on course. As soon as you deviate from that course, they got you.
Well, let me ask you a question, brother, because they never started off. They never even asked about the name. They just went straight into, do you want a public defender? Do you want to represent yourself, or do you want a private lawyer? And I said, would it be okay if I just asked some questions? And he said, no, absolutely not.
No, that's right. You don't ask that question. No,
what would you have said there?
I would have gone, what do you mean by want? Because want has got to do with your will. And your will has got to do with, and this is another scripture I'm going to use this want. I would like you, if you possibly can, find that scripture where it talks about thy will instead of my will.
I believe it's Luke 22:42.
Yeah, you're the man. You know the scripture. Find them all out, brother. Find these scriptures out, because this is what the judge is seeking. He's seeking that you are guided by your will instead of thy will, which is the Father's will. Right? He wants to see that you're making decisions based on your will, your possession. You've
Right
taken
off
a
the
life.
bat, first question, your will.
Yes, your will. That's what want is. Want is all linked in with desire, right? And the identification of I am, right? Through the offer of you. It's a head fuck. It's a complete head fuck, but it actually starts making sense after a while.
Right. Well,
Right?
he threw me off with that, brother, because I thought he was going to say, "What's your name?" to start off with, because that's what they say every time here.
They'll go every which tactic, but when they start talking want and wish, you need to start putting these words into sets and categories, because there's a whole lot of words of want and wish, and all this kind of language, want and wish, is all about one thing. Do you wish to take possession of the possessor's property? And that's all we're looking at. But it's invisible. We cannot see it, because we have not pondered on the possessor, and we have not pondered on this bizarre concept. Until you do, then you can start asking the question, what do you mean by want? And let them explain themselves. You never get to explain yourself. Let the prosecution and the judges explain themselves. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, brother. It does.
Good.
I feel that I explained the self a little too much. That's probably where I fell in. I tried to stay on point, and I did.
That's all good. You did very well, because it's as I said, it's not an easy gig. But if you can, that's what I was saying, by recording these experiences, this is how it's going to help you change.
Right.
If you don't record and you don't sort of do what they do, they record everything. They investigate every word, every little thing that comes out of that mouth. What are they doing? You're not doing. Yeah?
Right.
You understand what I'm talking about?
Right.
Yeah. So you need to do what they're doing. They're investigating every little thing that comes out of that mouth. Then what are you doing? Why aren't you investigating what's coming out of their mouth? Why don't you investigate every little thing that they're saying?
Instead of just reacting.
There you go. There you go. And that question, what do you mean by want? That's a very, because the judge just shut you down. Mate, you said, what did you say? What was the question you asked about questions?
Yeah, because he asked me 3 options, and instead of picking one, which I thought was the absolute worst thing to do, I asked, could I ask some questions instead, thinking it was a neutral
Okay. Now, could I ask, right? That's probably one of the worst questions you can ask. Why? Because it goes back to the could it be questions of Batman. Could it be is I'm going to put you in the toilet and flush you down. So anytime you bring up could or would or should, you're going to get a smash in the face.
Why is that? Is that because it has nothing to do with the facts that he's worried about?
It's got to do with physics of language. And could is presumptuous to suggestive language. It's a suggestive language. You're suggesting to the judge, suggest that I ask you. Well, who are you to suggest anything? You're speaking from a demonic force when you speak of could and would or should. And unfortunately, Batman's never actually investigated that, and he keeps churning it over, and he's actually causing a disaster for most guys, most people. Right. And it's extremely problematic. And when you go to court and you heard the judge firsthand speak and tell you after what you've asked and how it was completely rejected, now that should be a good example for you about what this could it be and should and would and all that fucking language it's a bad apple. Why am I speaking this way? That's called renewing of the mind, and start to change the way I'm speaking, because in the court that gets completely bombed out.
Well, he never said that, so I can.
No,
I mean,
they
I
don't say that.
already see what you're saying, because I already first sentence brought up something that he never did.
That's right.
And plus, are you saying that suggesting is kind of like possession?
It's
of
a
knowledge?
claim. It's a claim.
Okay. Gotcha.
So every time Batman is talking about could it be, he's suggesting, basically he's making a claim by suggesting something. He's suggesting something, and then he's leaving it with you to hold the liability. That's an asshole. It's a fucking disaster. Now, you won't know this until you investigate this. You won't know this. You'll speak like a fucking asshole, and you won't know, hang on a minute, why am I speaking this way? It's fucking going to bomb. It's going to blow me up every which way I go. It's like I'm standing on hand grenades that are set on the ground, and everywhere I walk, I get blown up. Okay? And that's because, could I ask, who the fuck are you to could anything? Could it be? Fucking language is a fucking disaster, mate. And if you don't learn that in court, the judge is certainly going to show you.
Well, he got ill with me the moment I even brought that up. And so, I mean, he was already, yeah, exactly. I mean, he was already looking like he was playing that role. But as soon as I said that, it already went left. And I was trying to still do different things from there. But he honestly,
you heard what he said. He said, "What do you want?" or something about want, and that's what you stick to. What do you mean by want? And that would have been enough for him to explain himself, right? Very important. Wish. What do you mean by wish? Okay, wish is it's all lines itself with the will that you believe you own. And if you're asking these questions, you're showing the judge, well, actually, he's tuning into the possessor's will. He's not tuning into his own will that he thinks he owns. And that's what the judge sees. And when you start asking the could it be fucking questions, you're going through the mince grinder.
And I did.
There you go. There you go. So I hope that if it's possible, one of the brothers like yourself, you're getting first-hand experience as to the physics of language and what happens when you bring up certain ways of speaking, like could I ask, and the consequences to that question because of what you put in there, which is the could, which is suggestive, which is a fucking disaster. It's a claim. So you're making a claim about asking. It's fucked. It's an oxymoron, but it's a complete ass. Yeah, it's ass about. And if you can learn this, you can then start seeing when you're on these other calls. You can start maybe seeing. This is how I learned, brother. This is, I'm nothing special. I'm learning from the judge and saying, hey, I asked these questions, could it be? And I was thrown in jail. And then I started changing the way I was speaking. And then I went back to court and I started asking, what do you mean by want? What do you mean by wish? And then I went straight into are you saying I was there, right? And then everything started to change from there when I started to bring up no more terminology, where I started to no more did I start to, meddle in their affairs by reasoning. As soon as you go into reason, you go into the waters of hell.
Well, let me also, like, you're also clearing up something for me, because before this happened, there were some agents that approached me that led to this. Okay. And my first question to them, because they were saying, where do you live? How did this happen? All this stuff. And I let them speak. And the first question I asked was, do I know you? And
beautiful.
And she grabs her plastic thing and she says, this is me right here. I said, okay, but do I know you? And
did we ever meet? Do I know you? Good.
Yeah. And she actually turned away very fast, But I will say, just like you're saying, they sent in a supervisor before the next supervisor, and I started with the could it be's, and then I believe that's when they started writing things down. She did.
That's right.
She never wrote things down. Whenever
That's right.
I only asked her, did I know her? But
No,
whenever I
do I
started
know
looking,
you? Do
yeah.
I know you?
Right, right.
Yes.
That's what I asked her. Yeah. Do I know
Good,
you?
good. Because you're talking to a stranger. You're
Right.
talking to a
Little Red Riding
wolf.
Hood.
You're talking to the wolf, the Little Red
Right.
Riding Hood, and teach this story to the kids.
Right.
This is what the kids need to learn. It's the Little Red Riding Hood. Stay on the path. Stay on the proposition. That's the path, the proposition. Stay firm to what you hear and what you're listening. Stay on the path. All right. Do not deviate from the path. All right. And ask the question of possession and stick to it. What do you mean by, the wish? What do you mean by want? Stick to that instead of this could it be fucking bullshit. And this is what most people go to jail for. And they don't understand, why am I in jail? I did the Batman shit. Well, Batman shit is fucking going to put you in jail if you don't fucking open your mind. Part of the thing is to learn about this is to go to jail, because how else are you going to learn the physics of language and understand the perils when you start speaking and you don't even know why you're speaking it. And so stop speaking and start listening.
Brother, I can verify that firsthand, because while I was in there, I was going over it, reviewing it in the mind, renewing the mind while I was in there, and like you said, seeing the possessives that I let go right past. So
Beautiful.
I mean, I can
Yeah, but
definitely
listen,
see where it went left.
Is it a mistake if you're learning, if you're unlearning all this stuff and you're emptying out the trash between your ears? Are you starting to, is there like a glimpse of light in all of this? And you start listening to the agents. You just demonstrated it firsthand when you spoke to the lady and you said, "Do I know you?" She started going backwards and sideways and left ways and every fucking which way but loose. And then she went and got a supervisor. You got to stick on the same thing. Do I know you? Do I know you, people, for me to speak of such things? And if you need to maybe write this shit down. Do I know you? For one, not for me, for one, to speak of such things. Don't talk about me. For one. One is the neutral way of speaking. For one, right? It's very important. Do I know you? For one, to speak of such things. Right?
Right.
This is to start meditating on the simplicity of these questions. You cannot see the effects that this can happen firsthand, right in front of you, and you'll be blown into oblivion. You'll just really looking at, where'd they go? What happened? And you won't realise the impact that it's going to be like Star Wars. I don't know if you've watched ever, and the droids, they start going elsewhere. They're looking for other droids. But when the judge starts seeing the changes in you, they'll start leaving you alone. You'll see, bro. You'll see.
Well, I do believe that I've probably got too much of the bat stuff in the mind.
Yeah, I know the bat shit, mate. The guana. I know. Look, you hammer yourself. Look, I've had to go into the bat shit, and then I've had to hammer myself out of it, because it's like a stepping stone. If you're still back on that stone, you got to try and jump now 7 stones in front, and you can't do that because you haven't done the renewing of the mind. You're copying. And copying is you can try it out, because copying can be good initially, but it'll eventually you will sink, and you'll be like the Titanic. You'll end up going in the water while your woman's holding your hand and the love, and you're going down into the cold water, into the abyss of whatever it is. So until you start to unfuck yourself with the doctrines of your this world that we've been into, and the same with the Batman stuff. And without him, that's why I say without him, he started it in a sense. He started this fucking this thing, and I call it like a stepping stone, because he only's gone so far. But sorry, no cigar, Batman. If he went to court down here, he'd be in court, he'd be in jail for the rest of his life. And you might find that fucking hilarious, but that's the reality, mate. If Batman was fucking talking this shit in front of a judge, he would be in jail, and he'd probably be happy going to jail, because it's like at least he gets fed and he gets a cot and 3 meals, you know, if he starts preaching the shit that he's talking about. And it's nothing wrong with what he's talking about, but there's nothing practical in it. He's not offering anything other than you to pretty much you fuck yourself if you follow that. And I know firsthand, because I did that. I did that many years ago. I was bringing up the claimant, claiming I made a claim, and all this fucking shit. Until I realized
it's a good philosophical base, like you said, brother, but there's no practicality in it.
No, not at all.
Right.
It's all look,
theory.
It's like a preacher. A preacher is only preaching to you, but what's the difference between a preacher, someone who's preaching your shit, right? That's why Jesus never made sense to anyone, because he was speaking in parables. Mm-hmm. He couldn't make claims. He didn't make a claim about this, that. So he was always asking the question. Right. And because it was like, you either go down statement land or you go down question land. And is there a difference? You know, there's fucking huge difference.
I believe they said Jesus asked 300 questions and only answered 3 in the Bible.
Yeah, and that probably crucified him, just the 3 answers. You see, with the 3, that was just a little bit too much than the law would allow. Right. Once you start answering, mate, now the law applies. Can you get that through that fucking head? Yeah, you know, right. As soon as you fucking say a fucking thing, now the law applies to you. There you go. It's that simple. But fuck, it ain't that fucking easy.
So it's not that they're ambiguous. It's just they're just waiting for you to be a party to it.
Batman talks about the law is ambiguous.
Right.
That's a load of fucking bullshit.
Right.
There's nothing ambiguous about it. Right? It's like he says something. What are you going to do to consider that offer? There's nothing ambiguous about it. Once you answer to it, there's nothing unclear about that. It's now proven. You've taken the offer, you go to jail.
Right.
It's that simple. There's nothing ambiguous about it, brother. This is just like smoke screens. It's all ambiguous. It sounds great. Some of the language that these gurus or whatever, I call Batman a bit of a guru now, that they preach these it's all ambiguous. The law's ambiguous. Well, what do you know about fucking ambiguous? You know what fucking ambiguous is, right? You only know what ambiguous is when you're going into terminology. Right. Stay out of terminology, because terminology is all about reason. Once you go into reason, you're going to be biting your ass.
Right. So that's still a belief, and he's still taking possession of that belief that it is ambiguous.
Belief. That's right. You take possession of anything, right? Now you're in ambiguity or whatever land, call it whatever you like. But the law only applies when you speak of this fucking bullshit. Right. When you speak of this language, now we can prosecute your sorry ass.
That's right. Well, like you said, it stands out the most to me. It just keeps playing over and over in the mind since I heard you say it on the back calls about a month ago. You know, if the law is 9/10 possession, why the hell are we talking about anything else?
Yeah, that's right.
90% is a lot to look past, and I've never heard anybody else focus on the possessive part of it. But it's 9/10.
You won't hear that on this planet. It does. That's why it says find this other scripture, right? You're fucking good at scriptures finding. I'll tell you what, mate. Find this other scripture. Broad and windy is the road to fucking destruction, right? Narrow and windy is the road to everlasting life, if it's true, right? So put the question to these scriptures, because every scripture might have a statement, but there's also a question in its mirror. And that's the path you go on, and you stay firm and strong. And if you can be that pillar of power, if you can be that pillar where you become immovable through the question, right? It's a stalemate in court, and eventually the judge will have to say, get this fucking guy out of here. We don't want him in here because he ain't bending. right? They're looking for one good man in this bloody world. Do they even exist? You hear what I'm saying? And that's that song, what is it, The Wanderer? Looking for one good man who won't bend and break. Yeah? How hard are they to come by nowadays? How hard are they? There you go. These scriptures are gold, right? You find these scriptures, you put them up, put them in a category, and eventually we'll have all the proper scriptures. And there's another one, agreeing with thine adversary, right? That's another one. That doesn't now agree with thine adversary. Now that doesn't mean you make a statement. Agreeing with thine adversary. What's the mirror? You need to find the mirror question to every statement. Agreeing with thine adversary is, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? And the same with Little Red Riding Hood, when it says don't talk to strangers. What's the mirror question? Do I know you?
Right.
Don't talk to strangers. What's the mirror question? Do I know you? Is any of this making sense?
A lot of it, brother, because I just lived it, and I can see when I did stay on point, it seemed to repel them, and when I went off point and made claims, it seems like it attracted them.
Yes. Now, if you want a guide, you know that you're getting close, or you know you're coming close to the sun, right? Meaning that you're actually on point, right? Is when they're screaming at you, right? And when they're trying to get you off path because they're ready, and then they're going to try and reason with you. They're going to try and their role is get you to make a deal, right, with the court. And they're going to offer you all the kingdoms of this world so you can bend that knee and do an act of worship, right? That's all it is. That's all the court is about. And when you do that, thank you very much.
Well, brother, let me. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish. My bad.
Go on.
I was just gonna say before our court, because before our little hearing, we were the very last ones of the day, right? And I'm sitting beside the lady, and every single case at the end, right at the end, the judge mentions there's an agreement. Every single time before he finishes with each case, he used the word agreement, brother. So when you say you're trying to make a deal, I heard it over, and I kept pointing out to my lady, you hear this? Agreement. It just kept coming up, man. And I'm just like, it makes so much sense. So I mean, you just said they're trying to get you to make a deal. I just wanted to back it up. I know you know, but I just lived it, and so it's just really fresh in the mind.
Beautiful. And keep looking for it, because there's so many fucking layers to this agreement that it just fucking melts the fucking brain. It's so full on. It melts the brain. But you don't speak agreement to the judge, because that's going to bring up terminology, and the judge is going, you don't need an agreement here. He's going to put smoke screens in front of your fucking face, and he's going to say, oh, the agreement, this is, he's going to try and reason with you and talk that what you're saying is been proven in high court, and all this crap and all this stuff about what you're bringing up, the terminology of agreement. No. You don't talk about agreement with the judge. You just talk one thing. Are you saying I was there? And that is the only effing thing. Doesn't matter if it's a parking fine or if it's a bloody, because are you saying I was there has got to do with the charges. If there's a charge before the court, there needs to be a meeting of the minds between two parties. So if they can't prove you were there, how can there be a meeting of the minds to pass on the charge? And they need a where and when. They need a where and when. This is the fundamental principles. If it's true, you'll only find it out in court, which is always about a location, a time and place. Time and place is court. And when you verify it only through guilty or not guilty, that is a verification of time and place.
Right.
And when you verify time and place, now we can do business.
Can I speak to that real fast too? you said time and place, and what just jumped into the mind was they literally were focusing on 2 days before it happened. So they got us to talk about something happened 2 days before a certain date, and they got us to say that it was at the house. So they verified a time and a place in the, like, before they even brought it to court. They
Yeah.
verified the time and the place. So that
That,
just popped into the mind when you
that
said
is that's a fundamental for court to proceed. Is
that.
that's why when you go into court and they start talking about charges, how can there even be a charge without a where and when? And the only way to you to verify it is go, oh, I wasn't there. Now we can do business. I was there. I can do business.
Right.
Now, what's the mirror question? Are you saying I was there? Are you saying I was there? Now they got a hard gig to sell you. Now it's very hard to sell to you.
Right, because they definitely operated off knowing the time and the place. I mean, that was the whole foundation. And the question I had in the mind the whole time is, well, how can they even say something happened because they weren't there? So I mean, it's still going back to what you're saying. I'm the one who said I was there.
There you go, testifying against yourself. Did you see how easy it was to extract the sap out of the mouth of man?
Well, I would like to think I put up a little bit of a resistance.
Hey, brother.
But it
This is not a blemish.
Easy.
Whoa. This is not a blemish on you, brother.
Right.
You're about the very few that I've actually, spending this quality time together in actually doing it, and the humbleness within you is fantastic. So don't ever feel that what you're doing is being dismissed. No. And bring it always back to the maker. Everything comes back to that. Everything that you do is always bring it and consider the possessor. This is all in the hands of, in whose hands is the breath of all living life. That's what you need to focus on, my good brother.
Right on, man. Right on.
right on. Oh, you're funny bugger. So let's be in touch, and if you can find transcripts, if you can do that, that's gold. If you can get a transcript, I think you mentioned before that you there is that possibility of doing that. Is that correct?
I do believe so. They were recording the whole time. So I believe I can just ask for a transcript of that exact case.
Good.
And I also have the paperwork from that case. And I also have another case because there was 2 warrants on the name allegedly. And whenever this case happened, those 2 warrants from 5 years ago popped up. So now those I got to go see about that as well. And literally 2 of the charges say possession.
There you go. So there you go, boys and girls. It's like possession. Is there any other game in town other than fucking possession? I'd love someone to show one otherwise. I'd love to see that it's about completely something else. Once you start, to sort of focus on this, my crikey, brother, this is it's the most bizarre world. You start realizing what kind of bloody world are we living on? You know what I mean?
I do, brother. I do.
It's quite trippy.